and welcome to Semaphore Uncut, a show where we talk about developer tools and the people that are behind those. With us today, we have Jacob Smith from Packet. Hi, welcome. It's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Darko. Thanks for inviting me. Great to be here.
Yeah. So yeah, we are going live. If you have any questions, if you have troubles, seeing us, hearing us, please let us know in the comments. And yeah, Jacob, feel free to go forward, introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for arranging this. I know we need to do the usual thing and change the schedule a few times, right?
Yeah.
Because it's busy days for everyone. But it's great to be here. A little bit about me. So as you said, I'm with Packet. I'm a co-founder, and we started the company about 4.5 years ago. And so as part of that journey, I've got to wear all the hats, right? I have a Packet hat today. But at the beginning, it was me and my brother. We started the company together. He had a background in infrastructure. I had a background in marketing. And so as part of that, I wore a lot of hats. Helped on the product side for a long time in the beginning, even running the product team for a while, and then moved closer to my home base of customer success and marketing. Right now, I even direct sales and alliances. So it's one of those things where as a co-founder, you get to do all the things, and then you learn to delegate to people who are way better than you are, which is really exciting part of the journey right now.
Yeah, I can confirm that. So it's like every year and a half, maybe 2 years, you kind of change your hat, as you said, and you have to learn something new.
Yep, yeah, it's really fun to do that. It's a little hard because each year it's a new company. Sometimes every 3 months it's a new company, right? Exactly. And but it's been a lot of learning and a lot of excitement. So
yeah, as you said, it's something hard, but on the other hand, that's what makes it exciting. So you will blink and then it will be 10 years, but it's really fun because it will be a different company than it is around.
That's right. Now. We earned all of our gray hairs, right?
yes, if we have them. Okay, so maybe if I can just dig a bit deeper. So that's like a great combination. Someone in the beginning who is very technical, and the other side someone who understands marketing. So in wearing those different hats from customer success and so on. So maybe you can share a bit about that journey of like customer success and transitioning through those roles that you had.
Yeah, well, it ties right into our founding story. So for anyone who doesn't know, Packet is generally known as a bare metal public cloud. We like to describe ourselves a little differently. We're in the business of automating fundamental infrastructure. We happen right now to have 3 products, one of which is a public cloud. We're in 20 locations. We deliver a sort of EC2 style experience, but with bare metal and physical networks. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our place in the market. We also offer an on-premise software-only version and then an edge distribution model. Either way, it's the same experience and the same technology under the hood, which is we're just really good at turning computers on and off, right? That's like it's not rocket science here. But I think that the back of it was really like why enter the cloud business in 2014, 15. I mean, it wasn't like I know we'll go disrupt Amazon and Google and Microsoft. They should be vulnerable. No, it's really about what we thinking in infrastructure. You tend to think like 10 years ahead because it's like building railroad tracks. It's really slow, and infrastructure in the cloud is just like infrastructure in the other world. There's a lot of physical parts to it, a lot of capital, and what we saw was this is really tying into my experience is you listen to the users. And you look at the cycles of product and product market fit. And we saw that the public cloud really represented mass adoption of automation for IT, right? For pretty generic workloads, really big loads, but pretty generic. And that what we saw coming next was the natural sort of specialized workload. And with that, with change in who the buyer was. So the buyer of sort of generic compute that kind of does most things for you, it's kind of like getting a free checking at the bank. It's like pretty good, works for almost everyone. It's easy to get. It's there on every corner. And we thought that there would be sort of that wealth management, like that totally different than everyone else. And so understanding the customer and what they wanted and who they were is really key to why we started the company. and really how we've informed, our product and our approach to everything. So that kind of combines, and I think, like you said, a technical founder and my brother is my twin brother, so we just know each other really well.
That's great.
He had about 15
Yeah.
years in the cloud infrastructure space, so he knew all about infrastructure. And what we try to do is think, well, who is coming next, and what do they need?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing all that. There is one thing I mentioned, like customer relationships and all that made me to like remember Packet because just visiting the website and trying to use the service and all that, it had a very different, to describe it short, look and feel. When you enter, when you need to get a bare metal instance, because I was mentioning before the call. We had that journey from being purely bare metal, then okay, maybe we should adopt something with the cloud goodness, and it feels that we need that, and we went all the way. We used SoftLayer, which is I think bought by IBM and kind of disappeared, at least in my eyes. And then AWS, Kubernetes then brought us to Google, and we ended up using two public cloud providers for some workloads, but keeping bare metal as the backbone of the workloads that really need to be efficient and cost effective and all that. And I just wanted to share that buying like bare metal hardware, dealing with hosting providers, which is part of what you are doing, that was a very different feeling of just having that experience.
I think it's about understanding, and this is all about how you productize. It's all selling the same thing, right? We're all selling computers, and we're all actually selling Intel technology, right? We're just packaging it in different ways. So I think the key is, if you think of IT, it's the old cattle versus pets thing, yeah. And that's a server. It's dedicated to me. It's mine. It's particular. I like it. I upgraded the RAM on it, right? It's very much a IT experience. Yeah. Like you said, SoftLayer. And SoftLayer innovated the data center enormously, right? And so they took IT and made it like super efficient and actually almost fun for an IT buyer, yeah. And the thing is, if you're thinking about a cloud buyer or a developer, what matters more? It's like our best customers, deploy 100 physical machines, which is a lot of cores and a lot of RAM. I mean, it's great. One of my favorite users is Graham with NixOS, and he's posted on Twitter about how much RAM and cores he deployed to get through a backlog of 30,000 jobs for NixOS, right, through the CI loop. Yeah. For him, it's not like, he likes the power of the server and he's excited by being able to get the job done, but he just destroyed them, right? There's nothing special about them. They're just servers, just like VMs. I think that you think, then of course you start to design an experience that's API driven, or that's less about up, downgrade, change this, change that, and it's much more about sort of like, yeah, I'll take another one. Actually, give me 5. Right?
Yeah. That's you some that is exactly the experience the developer wants. I want to make mistakes and I want to destroy this, and that's the way of thinking, because there are generally in software, when you do something, okay, I'm tomorrow going to throw it all away, rewrite it. There is a cost to it this time. And with hardware, it usually it meant, okay, I need to ask some people to do something with this physical server, and then they really need to do something physically. And removing that barrier of like being scared to do something with that physical server, amazing thing.
That's it. Pretty simple concept. It's hard to do, right? Physical hardware, it's not smooth, right? It has rough edges. Things are different between physical machines, between each machine. They're not always exactly the same. They don't always behave the way you want. So our mission has always been to try to provide just the lowest level of abstraction, e.g. like the tooling, so that you could deal programmatically with that, instead of saying, let's abstract you so far that you can deal with it. We're saying, let's give you tools to deal with that when it bricks itself, right? When you change the kernel and you can't get back in because oops, right?
Yeah.
Well, how do I help you deal with that? Because that's a real thing. And the reason why is not, and I think that's probably what we're most excited about, is why hardware? Why does it matter? Um, it's not religious for us. It's not because VMs are bad. VMs are great.
Yeah.
That's all good. It's really because we see a world in which there's a lot of kinds of hardware that makes a big difference on what we're trying to do over the next years. If we're trying to fly rockets to Mars, and we're trying to make taxis drive themselves, and we're trying to talk to the wall instead of at our screen, we just are probably going to end up with a lot of hardware that kind of looks like our phone, where you designed this hardware around the software experience, and you combine those two together. And so that means you're just going to have we as a community, as an ecosystem of developers, just have to get good at dealing with a lot of variety of hardware, because it'll make a difference to our use cases.
Yeah, that's a new thing which is coming up in last few years, and yeah, in powering all those walls and satellites and all those things, there is one thing that keeps coming up, and that's ARM is something that's power that.
Mm.
And I know from different announcements that your guys have been making actually over the years that yeah yeah, you have been using ARM before ARM existed, kind of. So maybe you can shed some light on that. There was a recently discussion. I think Linus Torvalds about something, but maybe that ARM is not going to fly really before we make it very close to developers. They need to kind of keep it in their laptops, in their hands, and all that. And yeah, I kind of disagree to some extent.
That's okay. You can call us and tell them it's cool.
Yeah.
Well, so the question is why ARM, and what's it all about? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's at least what our customer base and people that we are talking about are very close to the internet, and as you said, it's Intel pretty much, which is powering all our workloads. And I would say that it's still far away from us. Like, let's say, put this in the group of web developers. So maybe you can shed some light on that. Where do you see it's going, and why it's so exciting?
Yeah. Well, we got into the ARM business not because we thought there was some massive missing product in the data center market. I mean, we're huge consumers and fans of Intel technology, and I don't see that as the reason to be excited about ARM. I do see it because of diversity. So the reason we got involved in ARM was because we looked around for ecosystems that we thought would support a diverse hardware model, right? Which in which what was it, Tesla yesterday talking about their specialty chip to help them drive cars better than their NVIDIA chips. It's their own chip, but it's probably, and I didn't check, but I'm almost 100% sure that it's probably an ARM licensee. Yep. And the reason why, and that the ecosystem has some very interesting benefits. I mean, does it make sense for, I can't speak for any company, but does it make sense for an Intel to go build a chip for just Tesla's cars? Like maybe, but maybe not, right? And so the reason why we got into ARM was because we saw diversity. We saw an ecosystem of 1,000 licensees and partners who will essentially build you anything from a set-top box chip that has no fan, to a 96 core, dual socket, data center chip. Now, not all of those are good. Ecosystem problems are real, but we thought that hardware getting more diverse meant that we needed to enable developers to have that in the cloud. I think it's absolutely important that it's in your laptop, like what Microsoft, notebooks and stuff are doing with ARM is really critical. And same thing with on your desk. You have a internally working sort of ARM NUC, developer experience is good, but it moves pretty quickly to the cloud. When it gets real, it moves to the cloud. And so that's why we released an ARM server 2.5 years ago. Since then, more use cases have come out where it makes sense. There's certain ones like around Android or around particular workloads where it's like a really good fit. But to be honest, we're not religious. We don't care. I mean, I really don't care. We're going to be working on RISC-V. I'd have Power9 in my data center right now if I could. Yeah. because mainly that to me is a developer or a customer choice. And what we need to be good at is kind of automating anything, no matter what it looks like, right? It could be a x86 Dell server in a data center, or it could be a small ARM device on a telephone pole. It's still a computer that you need to terraform, apply, and deal with. And that's sort of that's what we're working on.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned, cell phone tower and all that, yeah, in one chat that we have, you mentioned 5G. So ARM is something that I can somehow relate to. I do have it in my phone and so on. 5G and how that will influence how data centers are built, and how all those devices are talking together. That's very much out of my depth. So, but I know that you said that something you are very excited about. So maybe you can, teach us a bit.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a big buzzword, right? And we love buzzwords, right? Sure. Edge and 5G are all of it's going to change the world. So let's not start there. I think the most exciting thing about the wireless world right now is actually that there's a chance for developers to change the shape of it over the next 5 years. So 5G is obviously a major, standard that's going to gain some technology. It's a long time in coming. It will begin to be in lots of places, but that's sort of aligning with a bunch of other trends, which are, the main one being that software developers just keep eating down the stack, right? So a couple of years ago, it was crazy when Alex told me he was going to start CoreOS and begin building a new operating system. You're like, what are you talking about? And, people are like, oh, I could probably do overlay networks better than they are now. And I can probably start working on like unikernels and, right? So just down, down, down. And as you get down, we've kind of automated through the stack. And the one thing we haven't touched at all, it's really, I'd say, owned by about 10 companies in the world is the wireless stack, which all use all the time. Yeah. Developers don't get to deploy, touch, automate, control, and use wireless, right? They get to do something up until the point where the wire takes over.
Exactly.
And so I think that it's a really exciting. In the US, we have things like CBRS, which is called Citizens Broadband Radio Spectrum, where it's basically rentable spectrum. You can take 4G, 5G spectrum allocation and use it for just this 1 mile, right? Think about a football stadium. Like we have a small data center next to a football stadium outside of Boston. Well, it's not very important except for, when there's 80,000 people there who want connected experiences and video and all these other things. So suddenly it's like, huh. And so what we're seeing is that wireless is starting to get democratized for developers. And I think that'll be the most exciting thing that we haven't talked about over the next 5 or 10 years, is that wireless will just totally be a part of the developer stack, just like, any other part of networking. And that's really cool. Now, 5G is causing some interesting trends. I think the biggest one is what I would lump into disaggregation. So basically, 5G and any other advancement is creating that much more data. Right? It's just more data. We're all using more of it. Our cars are generating petabytes of it, right? And 5G makes it very expensive in the current model to backhaul it and deal with it, bill it, route it. And so the first thing it's doing is it's taking what I would say is the first edge use case is telcos. And telcos are having to push their network out to where the people are instead of centralizing it in a few places. It's just too expensive to move all the data. So they're pushing it outwards and putting computers in every city and having it terminate and do it there. And I think that's exactly what other kinds of use cases around 5G do, is say, I want to be close to that data. What can I do with that data? Can I do store automation differently? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a data center. It could be a few Raspberry Pis in the back of a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Right? That's totally fine. And so it's just a matter of moving the compute and things closer, mainly because of cost, but also because that's where the experiences are. That's where the people are.
Yeah. So if I am starting to understand this, so if for instance AWS has 20, 30 data centers. So you're essentially talking here about maybe, hundreds, thousands of data centers being very close to, to people, like every city.
I think I don't know the future, but the one that we're planning for architecturally is millions of things in thousands of places. So that's what we're thinking. Now, that's because if you look far enough, if you can get a model together, then, and of course, it starts. And think about the IT closet. I don't know, 10 years ago, we all had an IT closet in a building where we worked. Exactly. And that's where you kept the email server, right? That's also where you ran database. And then we moved it all to cloud. Now, I'm just going to pretend. Just pretend that you could put parts of Zoom and parts of Slack in the IT closet again. Like, would that change what Zoom and Slack could do for you? Would it be better, different? I don't know. That's actually not my job. That's developers' jobs to figure out, but I think it would be different. Right? I think if we could do that, then we would do what Chick-fil-A is doing and saying, I've got this localized data. I want to do something to get intelligence about my business and align my supply chain. Or, that's IoT basically, right? Or I want to think about new experiences I can power with local GPUs. I don't need a lot of them, but I just need to do them so I can use a camera to watch everyone who comes in and out of a building and understand, is that person a Airbnb person or a tenant? I don't know. And so this is, I think, the opportunity, whether it will be a data center that looks like what we know today, or if it'll be something much different. I think that's yet to be determined, but I do think we'll see a lot of computers in a lot more places. And the current model is not, and the current model in the cloud is to put a lot of the same thing in a few places, 15 or 20 places around the world. And I think we'll probably see the other challenge was, how do I put a lot of different things in a lot of different places?
Yeah. I can. It's a different scale and different approach and different industry, but I see a lot. We saw a lot of challenges of that. Customers in Australia talking to customers in Europe, and data centers in US and all that, and
speed of light issues.
Yeah, and it's about scale that you mentioned that at some point. At some scale you don't see that, and then when you start entering the other scale, it's just a different class of problems hits you. Yep. And then you discover that internet and network, that's like a very unreliable and very slow thing. Although you can watch 4K YouTube, but it's not streamed from the other part of the world.
Yeah, it's caching, right? Yeah. I think it's funny, we named our company Packet because it's networking terminology, right? Yeah. And it's the one thing you have to buy from a cloud provider is network. You can't not buy it. And yet it's kind of like one of those things that we assume just works. The architecture of the internet is actually really fragile in many ways, right? It's like, oh, whoops, I kind of announced your BGP section and routed everything through China. Sorry about that. It's kind of weird, right? I think the internet is going to go through an overall re-architecture, right? We pushed the architecture of 20 years ago pretty far. 25 years ago. And we've changed enormous amounts in software, enormous amounts. I think that's the cool thing, is that hardware and networks are going to start to move at software speed. They're going to start to be influenced by that velocity, and they will have to change. That doesn't mean it's all going to be my way or someone else's way. I think it's going to be a lot of iteration, right? Just like Kubernetes is all the rage now. And if you ask Dan Cohn, it's a life cycle. 5 years from now, it'll be something else. That's how it goes, right? We go through these waves. And I think it's just a little more complex of a challenge when you talk about infrastructure, because it's so expensive to deploy it and to put it in market and to put glass in the ground or cables under the ocean. So there's a little bit of a nuance there that we will have to work together, between the ecosystems to figure out how to get the best results.
Yeah, true. We as software developers, that physical world is so far away from us, and as new generations of developers are coming up, maybe IoT has an opportunity to influence them and to move them closer to hardware, but
Are you seeing that through your company, right? So people are asking you, I'm sure that they're building for more kinds of devices for IoT, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, we know that we have, iPhone for more than 10 years and all that, but it was kind
Yeah.
of a single thing. And as you were mentioning throughout this conversation, that it's a many of those little and very diverse things. So that seems to be picking up. So
Mm.
people want to talk with different things and, test them and all those things. So yeah, and yeah,
So they gotta do it on CI. This is the thing.
yeah,
That's, I think, a huge opportunity. We were working with our friends at Grafana recently on how can we bring cloud native metrics and monitoring to all the other stuff down below. Because at some point, yes, I need to know about my PDUs and my switches and my BMCs and all these things, right? Because, I mean, right now it may be in a data center, but what if it's at a phone pole? Like, what if that really special, expensive, cool, does the thing I need it to do widget is not in your building? Like, or, there's all kinds of just issues there. And I think it's super cool, but it all requires software and testing. So then how do you automate testing against a growing variety of hardware, right? Even just think about GPUs, right? GPUs and
yeah,
accelerators. And suddenly you have a whole nother layer. And we're starting to see, you know, Mellanox and NVIDIA or whatever, they're releasing hardware every, you know, 12, 18 months that's noticeably different. And I think you can see that I mean, look at Google. I mean, they release an entire, TPU hardware thing with software like 18 months. So I think we're going to see the challenges of that coming to software development, where especially as we're selling to enterprises who say like, yes, cool, I'll buy that, but support it for 10 years.
yeah,
Then we start to have this legacy and this broadening variety. We're going to need to think about how we do that.
yeah. And maybe one final topic, which is closer to developers, which we were mentioning, and but this is not the territory that they are thinking about and seeing. So I think that's one of the reasons that this could be exciting for a lot of people. But you mentioned Kubernetes and the way that it is changing the landscape, and there is that multi-clouding or hyper-cloud. What are the terms? So you mentioned AWS, and they're covering a territory which is IT oriented and what you mentioned, and you being like a very different company in that area, how you work. How do you see Kubernetes influencing that, and maybe changing how the light shines on Packet and AWS and other providers?
Yeah, it's certainly making a huge difference, right? I mean, and we don't have I was working on a blog post, speaking of marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we're all working on that next blog post, right? But for me, I was working on a blog post about like, oops, we forgot to build a managed Kubernetes service. And and it's true,
I love it.
we don't, and we won't. And that's not helping us. It doesn't help us. I've got customers who would say, well, I'd move everything over to you if you had a managed Kubernetes easy button.
Yeah.
And my answer, and I think it's presenting a challenge to us as a company, is really testing our values. Like, what are
Mm-hmm.
we trying to do here? Because for me, that's people build businesses, whether it's their name is Red Hat, or we're working with Google for GKE on-prem, or their name is something that just started up yesterday. We're not in the software business. We're not in the as a service business. That's what the ecosystem of really excellent software companies like Elastic and Grafana are in. That's what they do. And so it's presenting a challenge for us, but I think it's okay. We're kind of working through it because in the end, it makes everything more portable and provides, I'd say, that single kind of control plane that people are looking for, whether they're at Google or Amazon or Packet or on-prem. I don't think we're there yet. I think that there's still basically a reflex of Kubernetes ecosystem to assume primitives that you can't take home with you. Oh, well, everything's fine. You just need an object store.
Yeah,
Everything's
yeah,
fine. You just need a really good load balancer. And then suddenly, I think as we're pushing things into enterprises, and I think that's where it's going, right? So we're telcos and banks and other people are saying, yeah, but so I've got this problem in that I need to have stuff in Geneva and there's no cloud there, and I have to bring all that myself. And so the ecosystem, I think, is reacting to that and starting to say, just bring it as software instead of assume that it'll always be there, right? And that's, I think, a big shift for Kubernetes, and I think we'll be on the other side of that in a very good way.
Yeah. The Kubernetes is, I would say, in very early stages. So it as a data center operating system, it will be around for a very long time, because I think world wanted something like that for the last 20 years, but it was not around. But it is in a primitive there, but there's still a lot of things to be built on top of that. So I love the title of your blog post.
Oops. Well, I'll finish it and you see if you like the blog post.
Yeah, please send it over and we'll share it.
Great.
Yeah,
Great. Well, I think that's one of the big topics of the day. Obviously, open source is going through a moment, and as a cloud provider, you have enormous advantage. And I don't judge the business models of any other cloud. I think it will all work out. But I do think that you make a decision about, are you in the software business and you just happen to own the real estate and the data centers and the hardware and the connectivity and everything, or are you in the infrastructure business? And for us, it's really clear we're in the infrastructure business. We invite partners to be in the software business to build on top of us. Almost all of our customers are delivering a service kind of like you are, right? Like to their users. Yeah. And that's why we've decided, hey, you get to choose. Do you want multi-tenancy? Do you want virtualization? Do you not want that? And you'll decide, because you have opinions about that and they matter to you. And I think that's an important part of who we are. And hopefully, of course, we can build a great business with that in mind.
Yeah, great. So it was a pleasure talking to you. I don't know if I have maybe missed to ask something which you think is very important and you would like to share it.
I think I know how to talk about a lot of things, but mainly I just love that I didn't tell my background, but my training is not as a marketer or as a technologist. I was trained as a musician, and my brother was as well, funny enough. He was a Juilliard grad. And I just find that the technology ecosystem right now, for all of it impact, is a really exciting place to be. And that can come in with creativity, and you can come in and say, I have a new way of doing things. I'd like to try it. It's one of the most exciting things that we can do. And so technology aside, I think it's Tim Hawkins said, it's an exciting time for boring infrastructure. And for me, like a musician and my colleagues, and everyone comes from a different background, but they bring ideas and say, you know what, I think we could do that better. That would be cool. And that's what's so exciting to me about software as well. It's like, you know what, I've got an idea about how that could work better. And that's going to be really important for how this world works. If we want to do all the things we want to do and keep the planet healthy and figure it out, we're going to have to come up with new ideas. And so that's just an exciting part of being in the business. So I feel very fortunate.
Yeah, that's very, very exciting. I mean, being able to welcome all the makers, people who want to make things and ship products. That's exciting thing to be in. And I love that part of this industry. That people from very diverse backgrounds can come in and contribute, in a very creative ways. So.
And I think it's generational too. We're a generation of builders and makers, and that's why abstracting us away from some of the things is really intriguing to me. So, so what did I say? Build, right? Build a better internet.
Okay, great. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. And
all right, Tucker.
Good luck.
Yeah, we'll see you online.
See you. Bye.
Ciao.